Well, good afternoon, and welcome to our UCCS faculty, staff, and students to our January virtual town hall. We have more than 400 of you in attendance today, so thank you for joining us. And as long as this continues to be a format that's working, we'll continue to host these town halls each month. My name is Chris Valentine, the Assistant Vice Chancellor of Marketing and Communications here at UCCS, and I'll be your moderator again for today's town hall. Let me give you a quick overview of what we're going to do here in the next hour or so. We'll start off this town hall as we always do with some remarks from Chancellor Reddy. Following the Chancellor will be Harper Johnson, who will talk briefly about our campus online programs. Following Harper will be Stephany Rose Spaulding, who will speak for a few minutes about the Campus Climate Survey results and next steps. And finally, we'll hear from Stephanie Hannenberg, who will address COVID-19 precautions. At the conclusion of the presentations, I'll introduce our panel, and we'll answer a handful of pre-submitted questions, and then we'll open up for our live Q&A session. As always, there's a link to submit questions at the bottom of your screen. So I'll encourage you to fill out questions and drop those in the link there, and we'll do our best to get to as many of those questions as we can in the time allotted. This event is scheduled for an hour. As always, ask for your patience with any technology challenges. We have a team in the background to do everything they can to get us back online as quickly as possible. So with that, let's kick off our program. I'd like to introduce Chancellor Reddy. Chancellor, take it away.
Good afternoon, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the new year. I hope everyone had a restful break and that you're feeling recharged. Thank you for joining us for our first town hall meeting of the semester. To begin with, a change in the Board of Regents. Governor Jared Polis appointed Ken Montera to fill the vacant seat left open by Chance Hill. Regent Montera will represent the 5th Congressional District, which includes UCCS and the wider Colorado Springs community. Please join me in congratulating and welcoming our new regent, Ken Montera. Due to the changing nature of the Omicron variant, we have some important updates to share with you. But much of the news is positive. First, I want to take a moment to reflect on the year that was. Despite COVID, we accomplished some pretty amazing things in 2021. The UCCS spirit shined bright during the in-person fall 2021 commencement ceremonies. We awarded nearly 1,100 degrees to graduates of the fall and summer 2021 semesters on December 17th. If you recall, the previous 3 graduations were remote, so this was a very special commencement day for many. In addition, with help and support from our regents and the president, we were able to give pay raises to our faculty and staff. So you should see a 3% pay raise and a 1% bonus for many of you, and some have been exempt from that. So we're really grateful to the regents and the president for that. Last fall, we signed a partnership with the US Space Force. My hope is that the agreement will result in new research funding and career opportunities for our faculty and students. We completed the first full year of the William J. Hybl Sports Medicine and Performance Center. Despite opening and operating during the pandemic, the Hybl Center is truly creating a positive impact for UCCS and Colorado Springs. Enrollments in our health science programs are growing rapidly, and we are seeing many sports teams, athletes, and first responders benefiting from its services. Our dream for the Hybl Center was to create a win-win partnership with Centura Health, and we are seeing the fruits of that partnership. We celebrated the dedication of the Kevin O'Neill Cybersecurity Education Research Center in our cybersecurity building on Nevada Avenue. We also unveiled a full UCCS cybersecurity strategic plan to guide our efforts in academics and workforce development. We had a record fundraising year. Last year, the total philanthropic support for the university reached $15 million, with nearly $3.5 million going towards financial aid. In addition, the 2021 Giving Tuesday was bigger than ever, raising $77,000 for student programs, a 70% increase from the previous best year. 400 donors from 40 different states gave during Giving Tuesday, including many faculty and staff members. And I thank you all for your generosity. Student scholarships and support services across campus will benefit from your generosity. These are phenomenal achievements. Thank you to the many, many faculty, staff, students, and alumni who made this possible. In the coming year, we can look forward to welcoming new leadership to campus. We recently welcomed David Siegel, the new Executive Director of the Inn Center for the Arts. Rami Hanna will join us in March as our first ever Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And Nancy Marchand-Martella will join us in July as our new Provost. I'm really looking forward to seeing how these leaders help us to chart the next decade of success. So please join me in welcoming all of them. I'm saddened, however, to share a different kind of leadership update. We received news that Jack Sherman, interim UCCS Chancellor from 1983 to 84, passed away last November. Jack was a huge champion of our Access mission and inspired many to give generously to student scholarships. We remember him fondly. Time to talk about COVID. You already received extensive communications on our increased precautions due to the Omicron variant of COVID-19. I want to reiterate some of the key decisions. As always, please submit your questions during today's session so that we can answer them during the Q&A as well. Our revised vaccine attestation process has begun for students and will open for faculty and staff next week. Full vaccination, including a COVID-19 booster shot, is required for faculty, staff, and students, unless they're seeking an exemption. Students have already received the link to their vaccination attestation. Beginning February 2nd, not February 1st, as previously announced, faculty and staff will receive their link, emailed directly to their inbox. Please submit your attestation as soon as possible. The CDC recommends upgrading from cloth face coverings. This can mean several things. You can wear a disposable blue surgical mask available across campus. You can double mask by wearing a cloth face covering over a surgical mask, or you can wear a K95 or N95 face covering. We are making N95 masks available for those who want them. You can find the link to request an N95 mask in the weekly COVID-19 update email. Please note that they do require fitting. Now I have an update on the incentive-based budget model. We're in the middle of our parallel year where we are running the old budget model and new model side by side. Progress is good. We continue to train employees on the new software and processes. The budget office continues to offer weekly lunch and learns. You're encouraged to attend these sessions. Recommendations made by various groups will be considered by UBAC and the cabinet as appropriate. The Dean's Council is preparing recommendations on reserves, spending plans, investments, and subvention for cabinet to consider. So a lot of work is going on. A lot of people are involved in it. I also have an update on the Future of Work Task Force, which completed its work last semester. Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Carlos Garcia, chaired that committee. The task force recommendations, some of those included technology needs for remote workers, criteria to determine which job functions are better suited for remote versus on campus, and recommended policy changes for new hires who may be able to work remotely, recommendations for faculty and support staff communicating with the students, and recommendations on how we can meet the needs of our workforce in an equitable way. So cabinet is still sifting through these recommendations. So I'd like to reiterate that all supervisors should continue to offer flexibility to their direct reports as we navigate these COVID times and ensure that the goals of the unit are being met. Finally, I want to take a moment to recognize the victims of the Marshall Fire in Boulder. Some of those affected were friends, colleagues, and students from CU Boulder and other CU campuses. If you wish to support them, the Boulder County Wildfire Fund is still accepting donations. Our thoughts and prayers are with them. Now, I'd like to invite Harper Johnson, Assistant Vice Chancellor of Technology and Human Resources, to give us an update on our online learning initiative. Harper?
Thank you, Chancellor Reddy. So I'm here to talk about what we've been calling the online program, but it's really morphed into the online/hybrid program. We have a vision that UCCS remains committed to student success and to creating the infrastructure and support services for all students, whether they are online, on campus, or a mix of both. We're currently working with the 3 other CU campuses and the system office to create a pathway forward to realize these goals. That proposal is scheduled to be completed in April. Why are we doing this? Well, part of the UCCS 2030 Strategic Plan for Success had both online expansion and enhanced student support as two of our key goals to increase our campus support of students. This goal is not just focused on online, but it's focused on online, traditional, and hybrid students, or those students who take both online and on-campus courses. Why are we taking this approach? Well, I think that COVID over the past 2 years has given us a great indicator of the flexibility that we need to have in supporting each other and our students. 15.2% year-over-year increases in hybrid students, those students taking both online and on-campus courses, 8.4% year-over-year increase in online students over the past 5 years. 27% of our SEH is delivered online, and 40% of our grad students are fully online. We think that those are important indicators to show that this is someplace we need to be investing. So what are we doing? In addition to the plan that's moving forward with the system level, we've started internally with a search that was posted this week, creating the Executive Director for Online Operations. This new individual in this position will help us to create the infrastructure that helps our students, faculty, and staff to support our students and each other in an online format and a hybrid format. That's all I have for today's update, but we'll be back with more as we move forward with the April proposal, and I'll be back here to talk to you again. Thank you. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Harper. Our next short presentation is Stephany Rose Spaulding. She's our Interim Associate Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So Stephany, the forum is yours. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. In October of this past year, we administered 4 surveys for our campus workplace climate survey. We administered one to our undergraduate students, graduate students, staff, and faculty. All surveys were open from October 12th through November 30th of 2021. All completers received a gift card of $5 of their choice, and student respondents were eligible to win one of 5 parking permits for the spring 2020 semester. As it relates to those who participated, there were 20% of our undergraduate population who responded, 21% of our graduate population that responded, 48% of our faculty population responded, and 73% of our staff population responded. The data is still being calculated and assessed, but we will begin sharing with campus leadership information about what was collected so that we can begin analyzing as a campus what our campus climate is as it relates to a sense of belonging, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So please stay tuned to updates that will be coming out beginning at the end of February and moving towards the middle of our semester. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephany. So we're going to transition to another Stephany. So I'd like to introduce Stephany Hannenberg, our Assistant Vice Chancellor for Health and Wellness, who's also a nurse practitioner, who's going to speak a little bit about COVID and some precautions we can take. So Stephany, back to you.
Thanks, Chris. So I'm just going to give some helpful reminders trying to keep campus safe amidst this 22-month-long pandemic. So just a reminder, if everybody could please stay home if you develop any COVID symptoms. I know with Omicron variant, we have a lot of individuals who've had very mild symptoms, maybe 1 or 2 mild cold-like symptoms. But what we're seeing is that individuals are coming to campus, going to class and work, and maybe 3, 4, 5 days in, they're deciding to test and finding out it's positive, and then we have to backtrack all those individuals who then are maybe having to miss school and work. So if we can just get people to stay home and test when they have symptoms, it will help the entire campus stay open and have everybody able to experience this. On the same note with getting tested, the ideal time frame for testing is days 2 through 5. Viral loads tend not to be high enough on the first day for tests to be very accurate. So when you look at the instructions that come with the home test kits that were sent out, we encourage everybody, if you're using those kits, to also test on days 2 through 5. If it's after day 5, a PCR test is the most accurate that you can get. So you would want to go to a testing site for that. As I mentioned, the home test kits were provided by the State Health Department and distributed yesterday and today based on priority of individuals actively on campus. And your college and department will have more information about that. Again, instructions that go along with that on what to do with the test kits and reporting and everything else are on the COVID website. The Wellness Center continues to offer rapid and PCR COVID testing for actively enrolled students. We're having rapid results same day, and then our PCR results are taking about 48 to 72 hours. There's still multiple community testing sites, many of them having free options, and that information is on the El Paso County website. So with the availability of testing, everybody should be able to get a test in a timely manner to help us prevent the spread, which on a call with the CDC right before this is really key to how you keep a campus and a school open. For vaccinations, boosters are now recommended if it's been more than 5 months since you completed the Pfizer and Moderna series, which aligns with our booster mandate we have now, and then 2 months after the J&J vaccine. We continue to host clinics on campus, so watch for those registration details. And we know we've heard some people talking about breakthrough cases, which we know has happened, but there is a definite correlation between the severity of illness, hospitalizations, and deaths between vaccinated and unvaccinated, which is why it's still so important for individuals to get those vaccines and boosters. As the Chancellor mentioned, related to masks, this Omicron variant, they have found it's better off to have a medical procedure mask, which you can request for your department or college through a work order through facilities. And again, make sure it's a tight-fitting, well-fitting mask. So if you have to put a cloth mask over it, please do so. And then again, the N95 masks are available with Cindy Norton doing the fit testing if you need to request those. And I've also ordered, facilities is also ordering transparent masks for those who need them if they're hearing impaired or deaf. So those are going to be available as well. And then finally on quarantine and isolation guidance, I know it's not as straightforward. There seems to be a lot of confusion that isolation is only 5 days now, which is not accurate. Isolation, if somebody is symptomatic on day 5, they need to continue their isolation for a full 10 days. If somebody was symptomatic, tested positive, and on day 5 their symptoms have resolved or are mostly resolved and they haven't had a fever for at least 24 hours, then on day 6 they can return to their regular activities wearing a well-fitting mask. But again, if they have symptoms on day 5, we are still telling people they need to isolate for 10 days per CDC state and county guidance. So when you see a notice that is sent to students, you may see 2 dates, and it's because depending on what their symptoms are, they may be able to return on day 6, or it may not be until day 11. We don't have the manpower right now to call every single positive case on day 5, just with the large volume that's coming in. So just note you're going to have to take everybody's word for what's happening in their particular situation. For quarantines, if somebody's vaccinated and boosted, and they have an exposure to a positive case, they just need to wear a well-fitting mask, which is a requirement anyway, monitor themselves for symptoms for 10 days and test on day 5. If they are vaccinated and eligible for a booster but have not yet received it, or are not vaccinated or partially vaccinated, they need to quarantine for 5 days from exposure. If on day 5 they have no symptoms, they can return on day 6 with recommended testing on day 5 as well. Again, wearing a well-fitting mask and monitoring for symptoms. And then just know that notices are now being sent to entire classes. If we can't narrow down an exposure because maybe the student doesn't know everybody that was around them, everybody in the class will get a notice that very clearly outlines what they need to do based on their vaccination status. So faculty, if you're working with students, they just need to read the details of that. If we are able to narrow it down, then people get very specialized information directly. Notifications, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes they come in late, so we can't always have our notifications going out to exposed individuals as timely as we would like. So we are going off strictly off the information shared with us, and everybody's doing their best to keep campus safe. So please, if you're getting notices from the contact tracers, know that they're following the protocols that have been given to them. Then I just want to end with, we are really trying to provide a holistic approach to this pandemic. We know that COVID hasn't just come with health issues. It's been a balancing act. It comes with social issues, academic, financial, mental health impacts, which are all important factors that we're looking at when it relates to campus, knowing that the students, many of them are really wanting this in-person experience. And so we have put in measures to provide that experience to keep everything moving along. Please remember, we are all in this together. We're all tired. We've all had enough of COVID to last us a lifetime. Some of us, maybe myself, have multiple pep talks with ourselves and our staff every day. But this is our current reality, so let's support each other and lift each other up instead of being upset with one another for a lot of things that are out of our control. Please take the time to thank someone around you for what they are doing. I promise you it will go a long way right now. And that's all I have to share. Thanks, Chris.
Wow, thanks, Stephany. Lots of information there, which is great. So we're going to transition now to our question and answers. So I know Stephany shared a lot of information. If there's something you want a little more clarification on, please use that link at the bottom of your screen to submit a question there, and we'll get to as many as we can. We have almost 40 minutes here to do some Q&A, so should have plenty of time to get to a lot of questions. So let me introduce our panel who have joined us for the remainder of the time together. So Chancellor Reddy is going to stay with us as part of the panel. Harper Johnson, our Assistant Vice Chancellor of Technology and Human Resources, is also on the panel. He can address IT questions as well as some human resources issues. Stephany Rose Spaulding, who you heard from, our Interim Associate Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, is also on the panel. Stephanie Hannenberg, our Assistant Vice Chancellor of Health and Wellness, will stay with us. And joining the panel, Jesse Smith, our Associate Vice Chancellor for Research, who's going to be available to answer questions on the academic side from faculty and throughout the classroom. And then Kimberly Geyer, our Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, is joining us to help with questions regarding the auxiliaries, so housing and dining and those types of services. And I also see Chuck Litchfield, our Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance, who is able to slip in and join us as well for writing questions. So we have about 7 questions that were pre-submitted from folks who, when they registered for this forum. So we're going to go through those while you take a minute to submit your other questions. So we'll start out with the Chancellor. So Chancellor, the first question, one of our viewers asked, what are some of the changes in higher education you think we'll see as a consequence of the pandemic?
Thank you, Chris. Before I get started, let me acknowledge Stephany Hannenberg, who's been just a tremendous asset for our campus, and she has gave us great advice at the end. But I just want to publicly thank Stephany for all the hard work she has done in working hard to keep our campus safe. So thanks, Stephany. And let me tell all of our faculty, staff, and students how proud I am for all the adaptations you have made, and we're there for each other during these times. So thank you very much. I think COVID, for all the bad things it has done, I think it has pulled us together. It showed us the importance of relationships. It has showed the importance of people, how we relate to each other. I think we all need to drop our guards and really be there for each other. I think that's, I hope, is a very big positive consequence of the pandemic, that we don't just be there for each other during the pandemic, but let's kind of make that as part of the culture. Let's be there for each other, and I hope that's would be a great consequence for us. So some of the things that I would anticipate, online classes and programs are here to stay. Students will demand more online and hybrid classes. They're going to demand more choices in the kind of program offerings that they want. Hybrid work is here to stay. Now, the question is what proportion of that is remote versus on-site is something our campus has to figure out. And I think we're doing a lot of learning right now. And I feel like with or without the pandemic, there will be a percentage of folks that will be working remote. So as I always shared with you and our campus, as long as we stay focused on our outcomes and goals, I think we can make this work and really make a difference for our students that we are serving. We'll continue to work hard to recruit and retain top faculty and staff. That's going to be a bigger challenge for us than before, because people are redefining what they want in their life. The pandemic has done that to us. We'll continue to emphasize more on how to get help for our faculty, staff, and students in mental health and well-being. Care and concern for all faculty, staff, and students will continue to be top of mind. At the end of the day, the better prepared our campus is in moving from on-site to remote and remote to on-site with the least amount of disruption, I think the better off we are. We just need to figure out how we can help and support our faculty, staff, and students in adapting to these changes so that we are not in shock every time this kind of thing happens. Because all I hear is this is not going to be the last pandemic that we're going to see. So as I shared in my highlights in the beginning, we are continuing to do a lot of great things despite the pandemic. So I have a lot of confidence in our faculty, staff, and students that we'll continue to do great things, we'll adapt, we'll find new ways of doing things.
Thanks, Chancellor. Next two questions actually are for Harper. So Harper, with your HR hat on, first question says that the viewer wants to know more about the Equal Pay for Equal Work Act. For example, we are hiring people who will make more day one with less experience than the rest of us do. So thoughts on the process around the Equal Pay to Equal Work Act?
So that's a great question. Thank you, Chris. So the Colorado Equal Pay for Equal Work Act has some new stipulations that we're required to follow. The first amongst those is that we post all job salaries. And what we've chosen to do is to post a range. Now then, don't confuse that with another effort that HR has going on, which is salary assessments. So we have been working over the past several years, and Cindy Corwin has done an amazing job leading this effort to do compensation analysis based on market salary studies. And we use 4 different salary studies for faculty and staff, and we take the averages of those and we come up with what the baseline is for a new employee starting in a new position. Now then, let's say somebody's been here for 5 years. That market analysis may have changed in 5 years. And so the new position that we post will be at the now going rate. The way that Colorado Equal Pay for Equal Work Act works is that once we've filled that position, we will look at all other faculty or staff who are similarly situated doing the same work, and we will look at how they need to be adjusted compared to that new employee's experience and education. So it's not as cut and dried as, oh, everybody gets moved. It's more of how do you compare to the person who actually gets hired into the position. So yes, unfortunately, we will have some postings where the now going rate is higher than what somebody was hired at several years ago. And what we ask for is patience, because the process works. We've already done it for 13 different positions on campus. In addition to that, we are working with an outside consulting firm to help us to do this analysis across the campus in a holistic fashion to set additional baselines so that we have fewer adjustments that are needed as we move forward.
Yeah, Harper, keep your mic on there. The next question is also for you. It says, how long will the university allow remote work for those that can work remotely? If someone wishes to work remotely and can do so successfully, will this be a new practice the university will allow? I know the Chancellor kind of touched on this briefly a moment ago, but can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. And as the Chancellor said previously, this is an area that has changed. We do have more people working remotely than we ever have before. If somebody's qualified to work remotely and they can, that doesn't necessarily mean that they get to. What we have to do is work with each of the vice chancellors' areas, and those vice chancellors and their leadership team will need to understand the needs of the campus and how that position supports the needs of the campus. And so, as the Chancellor said, through the Future of Work Task Force, we've been looking at this and we are still studying it. We've decided for this semester to keep the same stance that we had last semester, with the goal of sometime this summer coming up with better guidelines for more consistency amongst our staff.
Great. The next one is actually, this is a statement instead of a question, they said. But the person said, but I think it would be great if you could publicly acknowledge how appreciative we are for the leadership you have taken the past 22 months. I know the layered approach of precautions, masks in particular, are not always a popular thing to do, but has been so effective in maximizing the number of students to be able to remain in the classroom for learning. Your proactive approach is working, demonstrated by significantly lower transmission positivity rates at UCCS as opposed to our county. I would love for this to be celebrated on the call so people will know the majority appreciate your approach for our campus. Thank you for a job well done and keep it up. So, thank you for sharing a positive comment there. I'm glad we could share that with everyone on the call. Next question, back to a question for Stephany Hannenberg. So Stephany, the question is, will the campus provide N95, KN95, or KS95 masks to offices and departments for the spring to distribute? So I know we talked briefly about that. Can you give us a little more detail about the N95 and other mask options?
Sure. So campus went with N95 masks instead of KN95 masks. For the KN95 mask, it was found that about 60% were counterfeit. So there are some that are very valid that are out there. So if you're buying your own, please make sure you're investigating that. But we went with N95 knowing that we could purchase those from sources that we knew they were going to be FDA approved. So those are available. We do recommend you do fit testing with Cindy Norton. Again, that information is in the Friday COVID updates. So you can schedule, she has a link where you can schedule online with her. I do recommend testing it out before you get a bunch. Maybe get one and make sure that it's comfortable for whatever you're going to use it for, and then go back and ask for more because you'll already be fit tested. So they're available.
Perfect. And I was just notified that our shipment of N95 masks did arrive on campus last Friday, so we do have a supply in stock now and ready to distribute. So there was a link in your COVID update last Friday with how to go in and fill out a form to sign up to get those N95. So thanks, Stephany, for that additional detail. And Jesse, we have two quick questions for you. So the first question, how many students have holds on their accounts that are not able to register for classes this spring due to not having submitted their attestation?
Hello, and thank you for that question. I would say that thanks in large part to the consistent and frequent campus messaging, the vast majority of our students have completed the attestation. This actually might be why the COVID attestation is not even in the top 5 reasons for why a student wouldn't be able to register. It actually counts for fewer than 10% of all the various reasons why students experience delays and might have holds on their registrations.
That's perfect. Keep your microphone on. The next question is also for you, because it says, can you please address what is being done regarding the issue of the FCQ survey repeatedly denying access to students during finals week of both fall and spring preterm semesters? So the FCQ survey.
Yes, what an important question and an important topic. Ensuring that our students have easy access to those FCQs, those student evaluations, is essential. Our academic affairs, we are acutely aware of the issues from the past fall and even from this last winterim session, in which some students needing to access their Canvas, but they weren't yet ready to complete their student evaluation, got themselves into a bind. So we are prioritizing this issue. Meetings are already underway with our stakeholders from across campus to generate a solution as soon as possible. And I'm here to state it publicly, before the end of the regular spring term, this issue will be resolved.
Thanks, Jesse. The last question of the pre-submitted ones before we go to the live questions is for Chancellor. So Chancellor, I know we just started the semester here, but some folks are already thinking about spring break. So what are the plans currently for spring break?
Well, great question. So I just want to say that we have started the semester as scheduled, which was last week. That means that shows you how much confidence I have in our faculty, staff, and students based on what they did last fall, that how well they're all wearing masks indoors. Attestation numbers were great for vaccinations. I think everybody's committed to student success. So we started, and I was kind of hoping how the first week would go. I think it went great. So thank you, everyone. That tells you that for spring break, things would be as scheduled. We hope, unless something very different happens between now and then, if you ask me as of today, yes, we're going to stay the course.
That's great. Thanks, Chancellor. You can leave your microphone on. We're going to transition into the live Q&A. So we have about 25 minutes left in our time together, so we have plenty of time for questions. And thank you to all of you who have submitted your questions. We have a whole bunch to work through, but if you do have a question, please don't hesitate to drop that in there. And again, we'll get to as many as we can. So, but let's dive right in and get to as many as possible. So the first question, Chancellor, as it says for you, it says, it seems we have many staff leaving UCCS recently. Do we have any information about why they may be leaving? Is it a pay? Is it a work issue, flexibility issue? And then what is being done to focus on staff retention and to support the remaining staff who may have increased workloads? So if you want to start, and Harper may have something to comment as well, but we'll start with you, Chancellor.
So before I kind of answer that question, let me shift that to Harper for a minute, since we have the HR lead right here. So let him take a shot at that, and then I'll come back and close it out.
Sure, thank you. I'm glad to answer. So it's a great question, and UCCS is not unique in its stance in employment right now. There is a lot of turnover everywhere in the United States, and there are many reasons for why that happens. Some of it is staff or faculty looking for the greener grass or higher pay in other places. We've seen that. Some people are making decisions to change jobs, just to change jobs because they decided they wanted to do something differently. But this is happening across the United States. As far as higher turnover, we actually have run the statistics on this. And while we might have all been touched by a friend or coworker who's left, our numbers of turnover this year are no fewer or no more than last year, and fewer than 2 years ago, and fewer than 3 years ago, and fewer than 4 years ago. So I think that there is a perception that's brought on by something that Stephany had mentioned earlier, as we're all very tired, we're all very stressed, we see things, we react to them, and so what are we going to do about that? As Stephany says, we're going to be kind to each other, we're going to be patient, we're going to help each other at work with gratitude. And we are doing salary analysis to see if we can't increase salaries where possible. Now, this is UCCS. We don't have unlimited funds, but the cabinet and leadership team does understand that this is a key role. At the end of the next week, the retreat for the cabinet is happening, and the second agenda item on there after introductions and icebreakers is this exact same topic. How do we retain and recruit faculty and staff and keep them here? Thank you.
So let me just add a couple of things. So we have examples of where people are left for a significantly high pay, where they were allowed to work remotely to another place. So you'll see this happening a lot, and maybe we'll be the beneficiaries of this kind of stuff, where we might have individuals who would come to work for us from elsewhere as well. I think culture is going to be critical for any organization. I have also an example where I personally received a call from one of the staff who left, saying that this was less than a month. They left for a good job at a high pay and said, you know, I don't like the culture there. I want to come back and I have my job back. So unfortunately, we already started the search. And I said, well, you have to apply and go through the process. So I think it's happening both ways. Like Harper said, there is real data that says otherwise. But sometimes when people who are more connected to the campus leave, I think that does make news. So I think what we need to do, that does not lighten the issue. We need to continue to work hard. And like I said, in the cabinet, we will be discussing about recruitment and retention of faculty and staff as a key issue. And we're living in interesting times, and it's not like we are somehow unique. The whole nation is going through this process. So I just want you to be here for our students, help them, and continue to work towards a strong culture. That's what's going to keep us going.
Yeah, thanks to both of you for those comments. It's a good explanation. Next question is for Stephany Hannenberg. So Stephany, the question says, in recent emails, you stated that we have not seen a single COVID-19 case transmitted in a UCCS classroom. The question is, how is contact tracing being conducted in the classroom and across campus to determine this? So a little background on how that works.
Yeah, so how it happens is every positive case, so I will tell you this is on all positive cases that get reported to us, which is hundreds. As they come in, we have an entire spreadsheet that lists everything that student did. So their classes, where they live, what activities they're involved with, everything is put in there. And then we have to also report everything to the county. So what we do is we go back through, and if anybody has been in the exact same class, we go back to see was the spread in the class. What we have found from, like last week, we had a class where there were 2 people, but both of them had somebody living in their home that was positive. And so they got exposed at home before they even came to campus. So those are the kind of situations. So it's not a classroom spread. And again, most of the time the individuals weren't near each other. So we have not found any cases where it was spread in a classroom, even if it was, say, a larger student gathering. It's usually because they live together. It's those type of environments where individuals are in social settings where we're seeing this spread, not in a classroom where they're sitting next to each other when they have their masks on, because people are taking the precautions that they need to. But again, it's all tracked through a spreadsheet. It's very detail oriented. And just to make people believe that it's also being monitored, the health department monitors every single thing that gets entered. And then they do their own investigation to make sure that there is no spread in a setting. And if they believe there's any spread, then they come back to the campus, and then we have to go through the whole entire process with them to confirm it.
Thanks, Stephany, for that information there. Good explanation. Next question, probably Chancellor, probably start this one. So the question is, how did UCCS come to the decision to start the semester in person while other CU campuses decided to start remotely? So I know, CU Boulder was impacted by the fires, the Marshall fire, so they delayed a little bit because of that. But talk a little bit about the decision-making process that went into starting the semester in person.
So many people on the screen can answer this question from their perspective. We did have a lot of conversation about this. Couple of reasons are that the El Paso County was seeing the wave move up earlier than other places. So we were hoping that the peak would hit and keep coming down by the time the classes start. So that was a huge driver. And secondly, just the concept of, if we start remote, the decision to come back to the campus would have been much harder because of the cases. But if we start on campus and things got serious, we would have gone remote more easily. We could set a criteria to move remote much easier than coming back to campus. And like I said before, I also had a lot more faith and confidence in our faculty, staff, students based on the fall semester. I would love for others to jump in and share their thoughts on it.
I will jump in, if that's okay, and just say that I'm going to go back to the holistic approach to this pandemic. This isn't just about COVID infection. It's about the academic impact, the mental health impact, and what we are hearing repetitively from our students is they really struggle to go back and forth between remote and in person. And so I think that we need to look at this holistically every time we're making a decision. So that is a lens that we try to bring from the Wellness Center as well.
Yeah, I know it was a lot of input from a lot of different groups to help make the decision. So thanks, Stephany and Chancellor, for giving that background. The next 2 questions are actually for Kimberly. So Kimberly, I have 2 questions that are in your auxiliary wheelhouse here. So the first question, are there any restrictions currently in place for student clubs for meetings or activities? And also, what is the current food restrictions for gatherings? So thoughts on student events and gatherings?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Chris. And I see Vice Chancellor Garcia has joined us as well, so he may want to add to this. But my understanding is that we were keeping some of our student club meetings virtual for the beginning of the semester until we can get past the start here. And then we plan to hopefully open those back up. And I believe that will be reevaluated around February 1st, along with the other communications that have gone out about that. I'm not aware of any dining restrictions. We just caution students to be careful and to follow the precautions. We did have some recommendations when our RAs were moving in at the beginning of the semester and encouraging them to spread out and not all eat together, just in case, so that not everyone would get sick should that happen all at once. So that's the only restriction I'm aware of.
Thanks. The second question, Kimberly, you can start, and if Carlos has some thoughts to add, it says event services has been saying that all event spaces are reduced to 50% capacity max until February 15th. Do you have a timeline on when the decision was made, if that's to be extended or changed at all?
I think that one I need to turn over to Vice Chancellor Garcia. I haven't heard anything about that.
Thanks, Chris. On the event side, we're trying to keep the the separation as much as possible. Once we have a little more information on how the variant is reacting, then we may change that a bit.
All right. Yeah, thanks for sneaking in, Carlos. I know you got another meeting, but appreciate you joining us and helping our questions. Next question, Stephany Hannenberg, getting back to COVID symptoms here, says if someone still shows positive after the symptoms are gone, are they still contagious? I've heard some may show positive up to 5 weeks. So can you explain a little bit about what that looks like?
Sure. Actually, you could test positive for 90 days. Is what prior research showed, but it does not mean you're infectious. So the infectious period they have found is not to be more than 10 days. So some people, part of the reason they're letting people come back on day 6 is if their symptoms have resolved, there's much less likelihood it's going to be spread. Also, if somebody wants to take a test on day 5 and have a negative test, then on day 6, they can also return to their normal activities. For those that do a full 10-day isolation, there's no need to retest because they're not considered infectious after that point, and they could test positive for weeks afterwards. So after the 10 days, we don't recommend people test because it's not a direct reflection on whether or not somebody's infectious at that time.
Thanks for clarifying that. Harper, we have 3 questions in a row that are HR related here, so be ready. First question for Harper, are we able to get access to HR procedures? This viewer is struggling finding, access to, what our rights are, what our abilities are under the HR. So I know there's an HR website. Do you have any direction for this this group of folks looking for how to find more information?
That would be my first direction, is to go to the HR website and look. Obviously, this individual was unable to find what they were looking for. And so after that, I would go to HR help, and HR help could help them to find what they were looking for. But all of those policy processes and procedures are public.
Yeah, they can be hard to navigate sometimes if you're not sure where to look and what folder they're in and all, so it makes sense. Harper, next question is, what is the process for making sure that our job description is up to date and being reviewed for the salary analysis that you talked about?
Well, as a part of the annual review process, there's a checkbox on there that says that your job description is up to date. So it's supposed to be an annual process, and that's supposed to be conducted with your supervisor to update your job description in the system. If they haven't done that, then I would recommend highly that they take the opportunity to do that in this upcoming performance evaluation.
The third question for you, Harper, it says, can you clarify the staff pay increase? You mentioned earlier, but we kind of went through a little quickly, the 3% salary-based building, about the 1%. So can you walk through that real quick to clarify for folks what they should see, hopefully on their January paycheck?
Sure. So there was a 3% base building increase for faculty and university staff. Classified staff had their increase last June 30th or July 1st. So they were not in this January's increase. And that was for everybody who had a satisfactory rating. There were, because it was an extended performance review process, there were a few exceptions made to that rule based on the Vice Chancellor's input. And then the 1% impacts the same individuals. It's a one-time 1% just a bonus, basically, that'll be paid out in this paycheck that's upcoming. So basically, you'll see both the 3% and 1% reflected on your January pay or the end of January pay. And then you'll notice a decrease in your paycheck because the 1% won't be there at the end of February. So don't be shocked if all of a sudden you see a little bit less in your February paycheck. That's because it was only a one-time 1%.
The next question is actually probably for me. I'm probably the most qualified to answer this one, so I'll take a stab at it. So the question is, what steps are we taking to improve communication during emergencies? They give the example of the wind event on December 15th and the loss of power and internet on campus and the challenges there. And then the second part of the question is, how can we help to improve communication from cabinet, both in updating COVID, especially during emergencies? So as the person in charge of communications here on campus, is challenging. If you guys remember the wind event, we lost power to the campus, which takes out some of our primary routes of communication, our emails and things like that. So my advice to everyone is make sure you're connected to the rave alerts. We use those extensively during that event to let folks know, what was going on, and when the campus was closing. We do our best not to overuse those. So when you do get a rave alert, you know that it is important, and do your best to follow those directions on that. What can we do to help improve communication? Some of us think if we send an email, then we've communicated, and everyone on campus knows that. But in reality, we know that not everybody's always checking their email, or many students don't even read their emails. So my advice to everyone is to help us pass those messages on. If you read an email and you're a faculty member or a staff member, mention that to your students, mention that to your coworkers that, hey, did you see that email? Did you see that XYZ is happening? So I encourage you to help use different methods to help us get the word out. So it takes all of us working together. There's not a magic bullet in communications. It's just all the parts working together as best we can. So, but yeah, thanks for that question. It's fun for me to get to ask you. And so ask all the questions, get to answer a question. Stephany, we'll talk about mask mandates. Chancellor may help with this one. So the next question, what future goals, with future goals in mind, has a standard been discussed for the removal of the mask mandate? Is it infection rates for El Paso County or UCCS? What would be kind of the criteria for us to limit or even cancel the mask mandate? So Stephany, I'll start from a health standpoint, and maybe Chancellor can answer from a political standpoint.
Sure. So I think, again, looking at this from a holistic perspective, are we seeing spread in the classroom? What's happening in our county? What's happening on campus? What variant are we dealing with? And what does the spread look like with that variant? So I think it's assessing all of the factors and seeing how effective we're being with keeping students, providing the in-person experience, which is our ultimate goal when we're doing these things. So making sure that we feel that there is a minimal risk of spread when we move to that decision. And I'll pass it to the Chancellor to add on to
it. Like Stephany said, I think we're following all the health guidelines. I think if a time comes when you can make the decision, we will. Sometimes I think we'll be overly cautious only because of the best interest we have for our students to stay in classes, committed to their success, get them through graduation. So if we have to go a little bit overboard, please forgive us. We're only doing it because of our students. And if things clear up, we won't hesitate to make that call. But today, we're not able to make that.
Thanks, Stephany and Chancellor. Stephany, the next question is for you also. Says, even though there weren't any COVID cases in classrooms, this person said there were some faculty who did not follow or enforce the rules in class. So the question is, what can students do to increase their comfort level within the classes? You talked about precautions earlier, but talk a little more about things that students can do in the classroom to keep themselves safe.
Yeah, so if a student is feeling uncomfortable, I would say one of the things they can do for their own self-protection is consider if they want to do an N95 mask, because we know that the N95 mask provides the best protection for the person wearing it. Positioning themselves farther back in the classroom so that they are spread out farther, getting that good 6-foot distance from other students as well. Making sure that if they are themselves sick, not coming to campus, or if they are aware of somebody else being sick, making sure that they're keeping their distance. I wouldn't do a lot of eating and drinking in large settings where you increase your risk by having to take your mask off. Using things to disinfect their hands. We have hand sanitizer all around campus. We have wipes for the classroom. So just taking those added precautions themselves. And then if they have an ongoing concern and they would like additional guidance, by all means, we would be happy to talk to them through the Wellness Center.
Thanks. I get to be the timekeeper here, so I see 2:55, so we just have about 3 or 4 more minutes here for questions. We'll get to a couple more questions here. So the next question, Carlos, so you're still with this important question here. It says, will Cafe 65 ever reopen? So we talked about Cafe 65 and kind of the other food services on campus and what the semester looks like for those.
Sure. Cafe 65 will at some point open. The issues we're struggling with are labor related. We cannot hire enough dining staff to be able to staff adequately Cafe 65. If we're able to get enough people and train, then we will move in that direction. You'll also notice that Clyde's gastropub is also not open. Similar situation there with staffing, but we also have a mechanical issue there where we're trying to get a new heat evacuation system installed there that has not been fully completed. So in Clyde's, it's 2 issues. Cafe, it's the labor situation, and you see that all over the city, where maybe restaurants are not fully open because they just don't have enough wait staff or kitchen staff to accommodate the needs of the customers.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. Yeah, we're all looking forward to the chance to eating on campus again, which would be great. Harper, kind of wrap this up with the last question for you. Again, see a theme here. Everybody's asking about their pay here. So, will university staff get a notice of whether or not they're receiving the bonus and base increase from HR before the paycheck comes out, or will the first time we see it when we see our paychecks come out next week?
Thanks, Chris. It's a hot topic today. Yes, we are sending out letters to the campus. We will probably go out in email format so that people get them sooner. However, it's Tuesday, pay comes out at the end of the week, and our goal is to have those letters in your hand. But if you don't have them in your hand by the time payroll is in your system, you'll have one shortly thereafter. The HRLs, the human resource liaisons on the campus, are meeting with HR staff tomorrow and going through the templates, and hopefully we can get those out to everybody by Friday in electronic format.
Thanks, Harper. Well, we're almost to the end of our time together, so I'd like to invite the Chancellor if he has any final thoughts or just final messages for us as we wrap this thing up. So, Chancellor, I'll turn it back over to you for a minute.
Thank you, Chris. Well, the pandemic has tried our patience and tested our resilience, but it has also brought many new and important discussions to light. So I'm glad we're having them. We're learning how to adapt to the future, and we're headed in the right direction. I'm here to say, let's respect each other, let's be compassionate to each other, and let's listen to each other more. We may not always agree on everything, but I do believe we all agree that our goal at the end of the day is help our students succeed and take care of each other and make sure we are there for each other. So we'll continue to communicate often as clearly as possible. So thank you all, and wish you all a very happy new year. And thank you very much for everything you're doing to keep our campus strong in one of the most difficult times in the history of UCCS. So you're the best. Thank you.